It is Monday again, and that means welcome to After Action Report, your numbers recap show for all Schmoedown matches to keep you caught up on all the action. As always, your host Megs here, joined by Nat. Nat, how are you doing today?
I am doing awesome, Megs, especially now that I get to talk Schmoedown with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. It's been a kind of a crazy weekend, but this is always a highlight of my Monday, so excited to get back into it. But today, we have a fairly short week as far as matches go. If we look at kind of what our week looked like, this is Clash of the Legends when we get into the teams matches. But we had the Star Wars tournament still chugging along. We had Thomas Harper versus Eric Whiteley. Teams tournament semifinals, we had Rushmore versus Lightning Time and the other semifinal with Deception versus Danger Zone. As you guys are always all aware, but I must say for content purposes, we are going to spoil all these matches, dive in deep about everything going on in these matches. There are no pay-per-views this week, or from last week, so we don't need to necessarily talk about any of those. We have two amazing pay-per-views coming up over the next couple weeks, which I'm super excited to talk about when those come around. But without further ado, now let's go ahead and jump right into this first match of the week. Thank you guys so much who are joining in live, for coming in afterwards. Thank you guys so much. Be sure to hit like and throw some comments in on these videos so that we know that things are going well. If you have suggestions, comments, go ahead and throw those in there. We love seeing that from you guys. But looking into this match, the Major Thomas Harper against Eric the Knight Whiteley. Both of them, this is their second match inside of the division, but now first in the teams format. Coming into this first round, we have Harper up 11-8, going perfect, plus that bonus question. Going into the second round, Harper decides to spin first, where he spins away from the Last Jedi and ends up taking Rogue One, where he sweeps the category for the full 10 points. Whiteley decides to take Return of the Jedi on his first spin, where he also sweeps the round. So Harper maintains his 3-point lead, 21-18. No swings in the leader points there. Where we come to Whiteley in his third round, where he hits a 2-pointer in Solo, misses a 3-pointer in Revenge of the Sith, but hits a 5-pointer in A New Hope to avoid the TKO, which bounces it back over to Harper to hit a 2-pointer in Creatures and Alien Races, as well as a 3-pointer in Who Said It, which does give him the win with a final score of 26-25, where Thomas Harper answered 18 of 18 questions, 100% accuracy, scored 100% of 26 available points, where we also had Eric Whiteley answering 15 of 18 questions for 83% accuracy and scoring 81% of 31 available points. So not too surprising. This was a close match in that everybody kind of kept pace here, but Harper is just a beast. Aside from one check down to multiple choice in his first match, he is perfect 100 accuracy across 2 matches and nearly perfect 100 potential points earned across 2 matches. Not too shabby whatsoever. Nat, what are your thoughts on Harper in general, seeing him over 2 matches now?
What are my thoughts on Harper? Oh, he's a beast to say the least. I didn't mean to rhyme there. That wasn't intentional. But so I haven't done my fancy update in a while because we haven't had Call Live. But I have Eric Whiteley on my fancy team, and he did so good. I'm so proud of him. But he's up against Thomas Harper. And Thomas Harper does not miss. He has not missed yet. And how are you supposed to beat that? That's just – I don't even know what to say to that. Like, he doesn't miss.
And yeah, exactly. And even with that, Whiteley saying you can't be disappointed in him. I mean, he is averaging 83% across both of his matches, which is nothing to sneeze at. No. And understanding that he kind of got thrown into this league without knowing a ton about what was going on, having to kind of play a lot of catch up and getting up to what the Schmoedown Star Wars trivia is like. He is definitely still doing a very awesome job. But again, when your competitor goes perfect, you can't do anything but go perfect to try and match. So that's kind of what can you do against that is
Eric really did so well, even in an uber competitive league like Star Wars Division. he still did very well. It's just he's up against Thomas Harper. That's like the worst draw you can get in first round of the tournament.
Definitely. Yes, definitely a tough challenge there. And, kind of staying on Harper here as far as kind of diving a little bit further into this match. We only have 3 to talk about today. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the other nuances of the match. Kate Mulligan and the Major Thomas Harper, their chemistry, they're working through the match both in-game and post and pre-game. I feel that they're perfect foils to each other. Because you have Kate being a little bit more of the silliness and Harper is just all business. Something that I'm looking at, you're not necessarily needing to, Kate doesn't need to come in here and tell Harper how to play the game or to stay focused because he's already laser focused. He's ready to go. He is not missing questions. The fact that Major can pop back and just joke around with Kate a little bit in the game, and then he is just right back into game mode when it's back to answering questions. He hasn't needed much of a pep talk during any of these matches. Nat, what do you think of the back and forth, the interactions between these two?
I like it. I think that not just in the Schmoedown, but in like life in general, I think that the most compatible people are very different people, and I think that their whole like they have really good chemistry together, even though they're very different people. I really like their relationship. I also don't think that Kate really needs to do much because Thomas Harper is going to be Thomas Harper. It's like Phil Jackson's a great coach, but he's coaching Michael Jordan. You don't really need a coach,
And I see him also being someone who's going to do a lot of preparation before the matches. It's not he's not playing and changing things in game. He already has X, Y, Z, all the way back up to D planned for any instance that comes up in the match. Mm-hmm. So there's not really a whole lot that Kate needs to do from a strategy standpoint in the game itself. They've already put in the work before and afterwards. But it will be interesting to see if he does get into a situation where he is down or he's making some mistakes and things aren't necessarily going his way, how that dynamic is going to change if and when that does occur.
I definitely do think that they're a really good match because, like I said, like Thomas Harper doesn't really need someone super strategic, and I don't think Kate is the most strategic manager in the league. She's still like kind of learning to fit into this world. I know it's her sophomore season, but she has less managerial experience than some of the other managers. And I think that what Thomas Harper needs is someone who has a big personality, and that's exactly what Kate offers. So I think that they're a perfect fit. I am interested to seeing how she handles a little bit of adversity, but Thomas Harper has not faced that yet. So that is still to be determined.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else that I noticed that Harper does, that he's done it in both matches now, and it's a very interesting strategy. He is keeping the whiteboard on him the entire game. And he's writing down the questions regardless of what round it's in. And not sure what the strategy is behind that, whether that's something that they decided to do. I'm sure there is a strategy behind it. But I'm interested if Harper gets into a situation where if he continues on the track that he's in, he will end up in a tournament final and or a title match. Mm-hmm. And the one time that he is not going to be able to use that whiteboard that I can foresee happening is the speed round. He will have to be able, because I don't foresee him being able to write down answers quick enough to get through all 10 questions inside of a speed round doing it that way. I fully anticipate that if and when that comes across, he will be prepared for that. But that is going to be interesting to see him having to abandon that strategy that he has maintained and kept in his gameplay throughout these past 2 matches.
See, the thing is, we don't really know what's in Thomas Harper's head. Like, we don't know why he does it. I think that he does it because he wants to visualize the answer and take time to think it through, even if he knows it, which is a very good strategy. I think Thomas Harper knows the Schmoedown, and he's well aware that eventually he will play in a speed round. So I think he is prepared for that. I guess we'll see, and I have a feeling we'll see sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jake, it'll be interesting. We don't know until we see it. So that is something that we just are going to have to see when we see it. So yes, I like the strategy of using a whiteboard. It's just going to be, if it was someone other than Harper and seeing how quickly he's answering questions and how deliberate and definitive he is, I might be a little bit worried that they're needing to write down the answer to make sure. I think it's more of a, I'm going to cross my T's and dot every single I to make absolutely positive that there is no benefit of the doubt of what's going on here.
That's exactly what I think it is. I don't think he needs to do it. I think it's just something that it doesn't hurt him. Like he's just trying to make sure that he has the right answer and take time.
Absolutely. There's no rule against using the whiteboard in subsequent rounds. We just have always just seen them used in round one, but technically there's no rule against it. So if you still have that option available, and since they're still at home and they're not taking the whiteboards away from you, use any advantage you can. So
yeah, I mean, clearly it's working for him. So he should just keep doing what he does best.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's move on over to our first of our semifinal rounds here in the teams tournament, our little mini gauntlet tournament, which has been impressive to say the least. We have Rushmore against Lightning Time coming into this first round. We've got Rushmore up by 2, 16-14, where JTE and Ethan Irwin both go perfect, plus the bonus for 9 points. Roka getting 7 points, only missing 1 question, and Liz missing 2 questions for a total of 5 points inside of that round. Going over into round 2, we have where Rushmore decides to spin first. They take 2000s on their first spin, where they get 11 out of 12 points, checking down a multiple choice once. Lightning Time goes and spins their first spin, and they end up with opponent's choice, and they are given classics, which ends up being a little rough for them, where they check down the multiple choice twice, missing both of those opportunities and giving up 2 1-point steals to Rushmore, where Rushmore gains an additional 5 points on their lead to now be up 7 points, 29-22, going into the final round, where we see Liz answer a 2-pointer new releases. Irwin hits a 3-pointer in fantasy sci-fi, but they are unable to hit a 5-pointer in directors, which gives Rushmore the win via TKO with a final score of 29-27, where Rushmore answered 24 of 25 questions for 96% accuracy and scored 91% of 32 available points. Lightning Time answered 20 of 26 questions for 77% accuracy and scored 68% of 40 available points. And once again, the Finstock Exchange gets to add another TKO to their record. Impressive. Again, Rushmore is playing pretty impressive, is staying consistent. JTE seems to be on a roll. And with each subsequent round here, if you look at the points breakdown, Rushmore just keeps advancing and getting more and more points up on Lightning Time, and it just became too big of a deficit for Lightning Time to be able to overcome once you get into that final round. So you just, again, initial thoughts here, Nat?
Initial thoughts. I mean, the Finstock Exchange really loves their TKOs. And
yes, I do.
So from last week on, I think every team that was still in the tournament I could have potentially seen them win because they're all so good. I think that Lightning Time just had a really bad game. I think that from the round 1 questions, they didn't go. Liz didn't go perfect. I think that was the first stumble, and then them spinning opponent's choice and Rushmore giving them classics, which is a very smart move because I don't care who you are, even if you have classics down as a strength. Classics is such a broad category that if you hit it, you never know what you're going to get. And it could be extremely difficult, as we've seen in this match right here. And then they missed their 5-pointer, which is like, if you miss your 5-pointer, that's just a really hard thing to come back from. Like, you need to hit that 5-pointer. So I think it wasn't the best game from Lightning Time. I think they're better than this performance. But that's not to take away from the performance that Rushmore had. Rushmore played lights out, and they definitely deserve this win.
Yeah, and especially being able to go 11 for 12 in another broad category being the 2000s. I mean, again, 2000s, you are limiting it down to a decade, but that's still a ton of movies. So them being comfortable keeping that on their first spin could be considered by some competitors to be a gutsy move, but it worked out for them and it has continued to work out for them. They've taken broad categories in other matches here in this tournament. But in general, just thinking back through this match again, getting a little more detail into thinking about how things worked out, something that I've been trying to pay attention to with all of these teams is chemistry and how quickly they're able to get to decisions.
I was actually about to bring that up just real quick, because on paper I would have assumed Light and Time would have won because of their chemistry, because Ethan Irwin and Liz Shannon Miller have known each other for years, and also the chemistry aside, Ethan Irwin had before this match never lost to John Roca, and Liz Shannon Miller knocked out JT in the second round last time they played. So I was predicting Light and Time all the way, and this match really surprised me because like JTE, can we talk about JTE for a second? He played so good. He's played so well. He's definitely the MVP of this match.
For sure. And again, touching back onto what we were talking about, the idea of I'm watching these two teams converse and I'm seeing Rushmore almost coming into they have a short form where it's just they're real quick on their decisions. Roca defers over JTE when he needs to. You saw it. I believe Roca stepped up on a couple of those questions. JTE was kind of in the driver's seat most of the game, but you do have that in teams. You have that player that you're going to assume is going to be kind of the lead in most of the decisions. Even if they don't have all the answers, they're taking the lead in the decision making.
Yeah.
When I'm watching, at least specifically in this match, Ethan Irwin and Liz Shannon Miller going through their deliberations, it was almost where they had some extemporaneous dialogue. They're kind of just mulling around, and it was more of a friends talking movies than the sport approach shorthand that you want to see in elite level competition. So almost to where their just casual friendship almost got in the way of it. They weren't quite locked into we have to economize our time because we only have this much to use. I cannot remember where they were at on JTEs with that director's question. I know they used at least one, but if they were running low on JTEs, they had to really economize those conversations so that they had a chance of getting to that conversation and getting through it and getting to a potentially correct answer.
That is a very good point, Clay. You have to ask yourself the question, does their friendship outside of the Schmoedown, is that actually a hindrance to them? Like, I would have assumed on paper it would have helped them out tremendously because they do have that relationship. They do have that rapport. But sometimes that could be a detriment when you're having somewhat of a friendly conversation rather than being in that competitive headspace that JT and Roca are always in.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't necessarily call it a hindrance. It's something you have to be aware of and be able to hone in and say, okay, we know we can have just this casual conversation, but when we're in game, let's tighten up the conversation so that we can get to these answers quickly. Let's develop the shorthand. Let's develop a way to get to these answers quickly and know that I'm always going to defer to you, or we have a way of determining I'm comfortable here, you're comfortable here, who's taking the lead on this question. And with that kind of conversation, we're going to move on over to the next match, which has another instance of conversation between competitors making a difference in this match. Our second semifinal match, Deception versus Danger Zone, which could have been a finals match in and of itself with how these guys have been playing. But where we ended up in this second of the semifinal matches, we had Danger Zone being up by 2, 16-14, where Merle goes perfect, plus the bonus for 9. Bateman, Collins, and McKee all missing the same question and going 7 out of the 9 available points there, if you include the bonus question, which I do. And you go into the second round where we have Danger Zone deferring to Deception, who Deception decides to take James Stewart on their first spin, where they go 11 for 12, checking down to multiple choice just once there in that final question. And Danger Zone takes movie release dates on the first spin. I will have more comments on this round later, but we see that this does not quite go the way that it has in the past, where they end up being able to get 7 out of 12 points in this category. They check on a multiple choice 3 times and do give up 2 1-point steals to Deception, which are capitalized on. So while in the previous match we saw Danger Zone up by 2, Deception gains 6 points to now be up Deception 4, 27-23, going into our final round, where we see Bateman hit a 2-pointer in biopics, Merle hitting a 3-pointer in thrillers, which bounces it over to Deception, leaving Marisol to answer a 2-pointer in comedies. This bounces it right back over to Danger Zone, where they have to answer a 5-pointer in directors, which they do. Bounces it back over to Deception, where regardless of the outcome, they have to hit their 5. But for points, Collins does hit a 3-pointer in Will Smith. However, they miss a 5-pointer in Spy Movies, which gives Danger Zone the win with a final score 33-32, where Deception answered 24 of 27 questions for 89% accuracy, scored 76% of 42 available points. Danger Zone answering 23 of 26 questions for also 89% accuracy, if you round it up, and scored 83% of 40 available points. Now, accuracy-wise, these guys were almost identical, only being off by a couple tenths of a percentage, but it was the points where they counted which overcame the mirror accuracies, which does give Danger Zone the win in this instance. Now, before I get into some nitty-gritty numbers here, what did you think of this match overall and the swings we saw back and forth throughout this thing?
I think that you'd be hard-pressed to find a better teams match than this match right here. This match was so good. These teams are virtually identical in terms of skill. And it was such a journey throughout the whole match to see how it developed. It was so tight the whole way through, and it goes to show how important the 5-pointer is, because you have to hit your 5-pointer. If you don't hit your 5-pointer, you could be leading the entire game almost, and you would lose just like that. So I think that the key to victory for Danger Zone was they answered the questions that they needed to answer. They did make a mistake during round 2. Well, I wouldn't say it was a mistake. I think it was a risk they took. And movie release dates is just such a risky category because it spans all movies that were released theatrically throughout the entirety of history. So you never know what questions you're going to get in that category. I think they did it as well as anyone could have expected them to do. So I wouldn't call it a mistake, but it was just bad luck on their part. But like I said, 5-pointers is so important. You need to answer your 5-pointer. If you answer your 5-pointer, you always have a chance to win, and that's what they did.
Absolutely. And even as much as hitting your 5-pointer, forcing your opponent to have to hit their 5-pointer, because that bounces the pressure right back onto them, to where they can't just sit back and, because at that point, Danger Zone, they had answered all 3 of their questions. There was nothing more they could do. All the pressure was on Deception to answer their questions, which across the past 2 matches, Danger Zone has hit all 3 of their round 3 questions in this entire tournament so far. So showing that they may be down going into that final round, but they're pulling in clutch when they need to in that final round and able to pull those questions. Now, kind of bouncing back over to kind of what we saw here with movie release dates. I'll go ahead and just zoom in on this one just to look-see here. So a little bit of history on the movie release dates category as far as Ben Bateman goes inside of teams. He has hit it 5 times now in teams. And this time he hit, they were about 67% accuracy inside of this set of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Just wild guess. What is his accuracy overall with movie release dates?
That's a tough question. He is the movie release champion, so I would say 80%.
Approximately 85%. So very close.
Okay.
So you think, okay, 85%, it's not perfect, but comparatively, if you look at the rest of the league, in teams specifically, and actually across singles as well, I cumulated both. If you look at 2018 to now, the average accuracy that the rest of the league has hit when they are saddled with movie release dates on multiple choice or in this second round, 45%. I was shocked. I did not think it was going to be that low. I knew that there were some bombs that people have had with that category, but I did not think it was going to average out to be that low. So that just says Ben's got the track record. Statistically, he is above the rest of the league in this category in general. So I don't blame him at all for taking this category. But again, as you were saying, it's a really broad category, and sometimes you just get hit with those few questions, in this case, 6 questions that just were a little tough. And
it is literally the broadest category because it's every movie.
It is. Yes, it is. And yeah, you only have to know one detail about a movie, but it's then exemplified by you have to know that for all the movies. And the question writers are getting more clever in writing movie release dates questions because it has been used a fair amount of times inside of the league. So the more times that a category is used, the more times those questions are getting diluted down. They are starting to recycle questions, but the question writers are also trying to get more clever and to make the game more interesting and challenge those competitors to think about the questions in a different way and to use different avenues and pathways through their brain to try and come up with these answers, which I am loving to see. The style of questions that we've been seeing this year have just been really cool to see. See, we had a question here from Ryan. And do you make the potential points earned out of 18 in round 1, even if they miss a question and don't get asked a bonus question? Just checking. I actually do, and I can explain my reasoning for that. When you're talking about potential points earned inside of a match, round 2, you are determined often by, when you talk about steals, it's about your opponent. Whatever your opponent gives you, those are potential points that you have to give. In your round 1, you assume that you want to try and get 2 points across every question. So the potential points earned inside of a round 2 here in teams is 12 points. Now, when I'm looking at a round 1 category, it is individual people, and you all have the potential to get all 9 points. You miss 1, you miss out on 2 available points because you would not get the bonus question. But I still consider that a potential point that you have within your power to earn. If you answer all questions inside of round 1, you are given the opportunity to get that question. Now, it's more of a risk because if you miss 1, you miss out the opportunity for that additional question in there. But again, it is still within your power. It is not on the basis of, well, if your opponents don't hit this, then you don't get asked this question. Like in round 3, you have no control per se on how many questions you have to answer in that category or in those rounds, because depending on what the deficit is between your opponent, you may not have to answer more than just your 2-pointer in round 3. But round 1 is very much in your control. It is based on your accuracy and your accuracy alone that determines how many questions you get inside that round. And that is why I always count the bonus question inside of round 1. So that's a semi-long answer, but that is how I have rationalized the thought process. It is something that you have control over. Those points are available to you, and I like trying to make it harder to get those full 100 100s for people.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Let's see. Another comment here of quotes, director's scores. Yeah, those absolutely are also very...
But my point is there's no category that's more broad. Like, they're equally broad, but movie covers every movie. Same with those categories as well.
I'll say, I think I'll say also too, quotes, they try to narrow it down a little bit because you do want to, you don't want to be asking about a random quote in the middle of a trash movie.
You-
So
you
you do
don't
get
wanna be
you
asking,
get
like-
a little bit of a narrow down in there. But yes, directors can also be extremely broad. Scores and soundtracks are extremely broad. But when you're talking about movie release dates, and specifically because movie release dates is a very prominent strength for Bateman, that is something that is worth noting. When you have someone that touts and really puts in the work to make a very broad category of strength, it's worth noting. Similar to how McQueenie was with the 70s. That was his category. He was constantly hitting it with teams and the family, and also above the line. They were constantly sweeping that category, which was impressive at the time because, again, you're talking about a decade. That's a lot of movies to cover. And I think just depending on how you approach the Schmoedown, what your study habits are like, how you process information, how you catalog it inside your brain, can make it easier or harder to really master those really broad categories. And I think Ben has just found the ticket to making movie release dates something that he is historically, and I still consider, very good at. Hitting a bad round in this instance ultimately did not cost him the match, but it definitely is a reminder that inside this game, we have seen Clark Wolf get bit by horror movies, which was a big strength of hers back in the day. So any strength of a competitor, when it's broad like that, you run the risk every time you take it. As opposed to these smaller slices, which are much easier to digest everything into it in a shorter amount of time.
Yeah. Can we just roll back for a second because I see we got some new people here. You said the average for movie release dates for everyone else was how much? 45%?
Yes.
Is that overall or just for the teams division?
That is actually overall. It's about the same when you compare between teams and singles themselves. That is a combined number, but if there's not a big difference between the two.
So before we went live, you told me that Ben Bateman's accuracy in this category was so much higher than everyone else's. I didn't expect it to be nearly double. 45.
I didn't either.
Yeah, that's crazy. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, I was challenged to look that up, and as I was going through, I said, "Oh boy, this is much bigger of a deficit than I assumed it was." My guess was off. Just like cursory looking, I was thinking like, 60-ish%, 45. Are you
45.
serious? I was very shocked to discover that. But yeah, looking back over again, going back into the conversation of conversations going on between teams as we kind of wrap things up here, just to hit on that with these teams in particular. Danger Zone, you have been one of the best strategists in the game. You know he's coming in here with a strategy and has talked with Dan about how they're going to process through questions, how they're going to come to decisions, and it showed. Yes, he made some maybe poor judgment calls, and he wasn't able to narrow things down well enough in movie release dates in round 2, but that shows where they're getting these higher percentages in round 3. Because yes, they both have to hit their 2 and their 3, but when it comes down to that 5, they are strategic, they are to the point, they're going to get to that answer as much quickly as they can, not messing around. And deception also has been that way as well. With this 5-pointer, there's been some discussion on other shows about what kind of went on. Did Collins put the Bourne franchise out of contention right away with his comment? Did that throw things off? Could Marisol have pulled that it was legacy, not one of the original 3 if they had more time? We'll never know. But again, it's the idea of looking at how they went through the conversation, what verbiage they're using during the match that is going to give you a little bit of insight on what is going on with the chemistry between these competitors and how they view each other as competitors and where they rank inside of the team dynamic. So something that I kind of want to encourage you guys to pay attention to while you're watching matches, because it's something that I've started to pay more attention to, and it's been really exciting to kind of think about that analytically wise and look at what it is that's making these top tier competitors the way that they are beyond just the knowledge. It's knowledge plus strategy. That's what this game is now. And the only other thing that I will say here, Deception was on fire in that post game. Shannon was lit. McKee was not very happy either. So very interesting to see how things are going to go. Because we will see Danger Zone going up against Rushmore. That's going to be a battle of titans to be sure. But again, you get past them, you're going to be facing Corruption in a number one contender match, which is the other Corruption is the other Corruption team. Mm-hmm. Double names there. And you're going to get to hear Shannon again. So either team that gets into that match, it is going to be a entertaining match to be sure.
Oh, for sure. I just want to say I love heel Ben Bateman. And for him to go up against arguably the best heel in the entire league in Shannon, give me that all day. I love to see that. And also, I don't blame Marisol for being upset. Like, obviously, she, according to her, she lost by 5 seconds. And if I lost by 5 seconds, it took me. I needed 5 more seconds to come up with the right answer. I would be livid, especially losing to someone like Ben Bateman, who's been trash talking.
Yeah, he doesn't make it easy to lose to. He really doesn't. That is what makes him a great heel and very reminiscent of the team action days of old, which makes most of us over here at Action Army very happy. But then also she was throwing a little bit of shade at the fact that she feels she's pretty good at movie release dates as well. So we'll have to stay tuned on where that conversation goes. But just to quick clarify here before we start signing off, Ryan, yes, it is the mean average, or I do include the highs and lows in that as well. It's just straight average, take the total number of questions asked, total number of questions missed, or total number of questions correct, total number of questions given, and find the average of those. So that is where I went with that. Yes, if someone's going to get an official warning in Rushmore Danger Zone, we shall see, because I can definitely see Bateman and Roca. Yes, as Kelly mentions, this is going to see, forget Bateman and Roca, Shannon and Bateman go at it. Ooh, I don't know which one would get more fired up, because Bateman and Roca definitely have the history, but Shannon and Bateman are starting to start something new and different. So,
yeah, Shannon doesn't back down to anyone, and Bateman knows what buttons to push. So, if Danger Zone wins, that's going to be a heated affair. I can't wait for that. If that happens.
Absolutely, for sure. Because, and also kind of just thinking back through history here, we had Dan Murrell having that history of founding fathers against corruption. We have Bateman, who actually beat corruption in the Anarchy tournament when he and Who's the Boss were first forming. And then obviously we have not seen JTE go up against Kalinowski yet. So that would be interesting to see, and as well as, again, being the other half of the Founding Fathers, John Roca going up against Kalinowski and Chance again will be very interesting to see. So a lot of crazy storylines and a lot of crazy interactions potential to come. But with that, we are going to go ahead and wrap up for today. We went a little bit longer just because we wanted to talk about more of the in-game match stuff since we have not been able to do Call Live for a couple weeks. But be sure to like, comment, subscribe to this channel so that you can be updated on all the things that are coming up on the channel. Nat, you guys are still doing Twitch Tuesday tomorrow, correct?
We are still doing Twitch Tuesdays right over here, twitch.tv/call-to-action at 6 in the evening PT. I don't have anything planned like last week, but it should be fun. And also check out No Chill. We're not gonna have a new episode until June because we're doing a monthly. But check out the Sean Sullivan episode. Check out the Sabrina Ramirez episode. They're really good. The funniest thing.
Yeah, they've all been Yeah, they've all been doing really good. You guys have been doing an amazing job over there. The concept is amazing. People have really been getting into that. So again, be sure to follow all of us on the socials, which are listed down in the description of this video, and stay tuned for more things coming from this channel. But until next week, for Nat and the entire Call to Action crew, I'm Megs, and this has been After Action Report, signing off.